The Forbidden Ship. The Volanthi science vessel Stillwater Dawn drifted through the outer edges of the Kethera Nebula, its sensor arrays sweeping through clouds of ionized gas and ancient stellar debris. Captain Wellness stood at the center of the observation deck, her silver-scaled hands folded behind her back as she watched the swirling colors dance across the viewscreen. The Volanthi were a patient species, evolved on a world of calm seas and gentle winds. They had spent 3 centuries mapping the galaxy's forgotten regions, cataloging dead stars and abandoned planetary systems with the quiet dedication that defined their people. Wellness had commanded the Stillwater Dawn for 12 years, and in all that time, she had never encountered anything that disturbed the peaceful rhythm of her work. Until today. "Captain," her sensor officer called out, his voice tight with something Wellness had rarely heard from her crew, fear. "We have detected an anomaly. Large metallic structure, approximately 8 kilometers in length, drifting at coordinates 779 Mark Epsilon." Wellness felt her secondary eyelids flicker in surprise. 8 kilometers. That was larger than most Concord capital ships. Larger than anything the Volanthi had ever built. She moved toward the sensor station, her movements fluid and deliberate. Classification. The sensor officer's fingers moved across his console, pulling up data streams that flickered across multiple screens. His face grew paler with each passing second. "Captain, the structure is, it is registered in the Concord Quarantine Database. Classification, Class-III Deathworld Origin. Designation, Sol 3. Status, Forbidden. Quarantined." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew turned to look at the viewscreen as the computer rendered an image of the massive vessel. It appeared slowly through the nebulous haze, a brutal thing of reinforced plating and angular geometry. It looked nothing like the elegant curves of Concord vessels or the organic flowing designs of the Volanthi fleet. This ship was designed for one purpose: survival against impossible odds. Heavy armor plating covered every surface. Redundant shield generators jutted from the hull like scars. Emergency airlocks were visible every 100 meters, as if the builders expected catastrophic hull breaches as a matter of routine. The ship looked like it had been beaten, repaired, beaten again, and rebuilt stronger each time. Wellness felt her hearts beating faster. Class-III Deathworld Origin. She had heard the stories, the warnings passed down through Concord Academy training. Deathworlds were planets where evolution became warfare, where survival demanded violence, where species emerged not through cooperation but through conquest. Only 3 species in galactic history had ever been classified as Class 3. 2 of them had destroyed themselves in nuclear fire before achieving space flight. The third had been quarantined, their homeworld designation lost to time, their very existence a cautionary tale told to young officers who dreamed of exploration. "Pull all available data on Sol 3, Wellness commanded, her voice steady despite the cold fear spreading through her chest. Her science officer worked quickly, pulling ancient files from the Concord Central Archives. "Captain, the data is fragmentary. Sol 3 refers to a planet designated Earth, 3rd orbital position in a yellow dwarf system. The species is called human. They were discovered by a Concord survey mission approximately 1,200 years ago during initial stellar mapping. First contact protocols were attempted, but the mission was aborted when the survey team discovered evidence of recent global warfare, weapons of mass destruction, and societal structures built around territorial aggression. The Concord Council voted to place Earth under indefinite quarantine. No further contact was authorized. The humans were deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent to be integrated into galactic civilization." Wellness stared at the massive ship on her view screen. "And yet they built this." "Yes, Captain. The vessel appears to be approximately 900 years old based on material decay analysis and radiation scarring. It predates the quarantine order, which suggests the humans launched this ship before they knew the galaxy had rejected them. 900 years. Wellness tried to imagine it. 900 years drifting through the void, cut off from their homeworld, not knowing that the galaxy had turned its back on them. What kind of species could survive that? What kind of will did it take to keep going when there was no destination, no hope of return? Scan for life signs, Wellness ordered. The sensor officer worked for several minutes, his instruments struggling to penetrate the ship's heavily shielded hull. Finally, he looked up, his expression unreadable. "Captain, I am detecting minimal power signatures. Emergency systems only. There are sealed sections deep within the vessel. Cryostasis chambers. The readings are faint, but I believe there are life forms inside. Hundreds of them. Perhaps thousands. They are in deep hibernation." Wellness felt the weight of the decision settling onto her shoulders. Concord law was clear. Class-III vessels were to be reported immediately and avoided at all costs. Contact with quarantined species was forbidden under penalty of expulsion from the Concord. But Concord law had also been written by species who had never faced true hardship, who had evolved on kind worlds where survival came easily. The Valanthi understood patience, understood observation. And Wellness understood something else: if there were living beings aboard that ship, beings who had survived 900 years in the darkness, they deserved to be seen. "Prepare a boarding team," she said quietly. "We will investigate." Her first officer stepped forward, concern clear in his posture. "Captain, the Concord." "The Concord is not here," Wellness interrupted gently. "We are scientists first. We observe. We document. We understand. And if there are survivors aboard that vessel, we will honor their struggle by bearing witness to it." The Stillwater Dawn moved closer to the ancient human ship, and with each passing kilometer, Wellness felt the magnitude of what they were about to discover. Retrie. The Awakening. The Valanthi boarding team moved through the airlock connection with careful precision, their environmental suits gleaming softly under the emergency lighting that flickered to life as they approached. Wellness led the team herself, accompanied by her science officer Treneth, medical specialist Kessa, and 2 security personnel whose presence felt almost absurd given the silence that surrounded them. The moment they crossed the threshold into the human vessel, everything changed. The air itself felt different, heavier somehow, as if the ship remembered the gravity of the world that had birthed it. The corridor stretched before them, wide enough to accommodate cargo loaders or emergency equipment, its walls marked with symbols in a language the Valanthi translation matrix struggled to interpret. Wellness ran her hand along the nearest wall and felt the roughness of repeated repairs, layers of welding and reinforcement that spoke of countless emergencies survived through determination and improvisation. These corridors were designed for high-stress evacuation, Treneth observed, his scanner sweeping across the architecture. "See here, Captain. Every 15 meters there is an emergency bulkhead capable of sealing in microseconds. Every junction has manual override controls at 3 different height levels, suggesting the humans planned for injuries that might prevent someone from reaching standard controls. And these markings," he pointed to colored lines running along the floor and ceiling, "they create navigation paths visible even in complete darkness or smoke-filled conditions." Kessa knelt beside what appeared to be a medical station built into the wall, its supplies long ago consumed or degraded. They expected casualties. Not occasional accidents, but regular, sustained casualties. This entire ship is designed around the assumption that disaster is inevitable and survival requires constant preparation. Her voice carried a mixture of horror and reluctant admiration. They moved deeper into the vessel, passing through sections that told a story of generational struggle. Hydroponics bays where plants had once grown under artificial suns, their systems now dormant but still intact. Engineering sections where tools were organized with obsessive precision, each one marked with instructions and safety warnings in that harsh, angular human script. Recreation areas where evidence of art and music remained, paintings bolted to walls, instruments secured in protective cases, books printed on actual physical paper and stored in vacuum-sealed containers. These humans had not merely survived, they had insisted on living, on maintaining culture and beauty even as they drifted through the endless dark. "Captain," one of the security officers called out, his voice echoing through the empty corridors. "We have found something. You need to see this." Wellness followed him to a central chamber that appeared to be some kind of operations center. The walls were covered with screens and display panels, most of them dark, but a few still glowing with minimal power. In the center of the room stood a holographic display projector, and when Treneth activated it, an image materialized above them. It was a planet. Blue and green and white, beautiful in a way that made Wellness's heart ache. Earth. The human homeworld. And surrounding the image were names, thousands upon thousands of names, scrolling slowly through the air in columns of light. A memorial, Kessa whispered. These are the people who died before the ship launched. The ones who stayed behind. Treneth studied the data streaming across the functional displays. Captain, I am accessing the ship's logs. They are extensive, covering the entire 900-year voyage. The vessel is named Horizon Lance. It was launched during what the humans call the Great Departure, a desperate attempt to save a portion of their population from a planetary catastrophe. According to these records, multiple colony ships were built and launched, though this log contains no information about whether any others survived. The Horizon Lance carried 12,000 humans in cryostasis, plus a rotating crew of 500 who would serve in shifts, each generation training the next to maintain the ship and search for a habitable world. Did they find one? Wellness asked, though she already knew the answer. If they had, the ship would not still be here. No, Captain. They searched for 700 years. Every star system they encountered was either already inhabited by spacefaring species who did not welcome them, or unsuitable for human colonization. They were turned away again and again. Some species threatened them with destruction if they came closer. Others simply refused to acknowledge their hails. The humans began to realize they were unwanted, that the galaxy had no place for them. Treneth's voice grew quieter as he read further. 200 years ago, the last active crew made a decision. They placed everyone, including themselves, into deep cryostasis. They programmed the ship to drift at minimal power, preserving what remained of their resources, hoping that perhaps in the far future, the galaxy might change. That someone might find them and offer them a chance. The weight of that decision hung in the air. Wellness imagined those final crew members, sealing themselves into cold sleep without knowing if they would ever wake, trusting in a future they would never see themselves. It was an act of profound faith or profound desperation. Perhaps both. Captain, Kessa said urgently, the cryosystems are failing. The backup power is nearly exhausted. If we do not act within the next few hours, the stasis chambers will shut down completely. The humans inside will die. Wellness felt the moment crystallize around her. She could report this to the Concord Council and wait for their decision, but that would take weeks, and these humans did not have weeks. She could leave now, pretend they had never found this ship, let the humans slip quietly into death as the galaxy had intended 900 years ago. Or she could choose to see these humans not as the monsters the Concord feared, but as people who had endured more than any Valanthi could imagine. Connect our power systems to theirs, Wellness commanded. Stabilize the cryochambers. And prepare medical facilities aboard the Stillwater Dawn. We are going to wake them. Her first officer began to protest, but Wellness raised her hand. I will accept full responsibility. Record my decision in the official log. But I will not let people die because we are afraid of what they might be. We will discover what they are. The Valanthi team worked with desperate efficiency, their engineers connecting power conduits and routing energy from the Stillwater Dawn into the human vessel's failing systems. Slowly, lights began to glow brighter throughout the Horizon Lance. Displays flickered to life. And deep within the ship, in chambers filled with frost and silence, 12,000 human hearts began to beat faster as ancient machinery initiated revival protocols. The first chamber to open contained a young woman, her dark hair floating in the preservation fluid that drained away as the pod tilted upright. Her eyes opened, brown and bright and filled with confusion as she saw the Valanthi faces staring at her through the transparent panel. For a moment, neither species moved. Then the human woman smiled, weak and uncertain, and pressed her hand against the inside of the glass. Kessa, without thinking, pressed her own hand to the outside, matching the gesture. "Welcome back," Wellness said softly, knowing the human could not yet understand her words but hoping she would understand the intention behind them. "You are not alone anymore." The shield. The awakening took 3 days. The Valanthi medical teams worked alongside the human ship's automated systems, carefully bringing people out of cryostasis in small groups to avoid overwhelming both species. Wellness watched as the Horizon Lance transformed from a tomb into something alive again. Humans moved through the corridors with increasing confidence, their bodies adapting with remarkable speed to consciousness after centuries of sleep. They were shorter than the Valanthi on average, built more compact and dense, their movements carrying an efficiency that spoke of evolution under higher gravity. But what struck Wellness most was not their physical form but their reactions. There was fear, yes, and confusion, but beneath it all was an overwhelming curiosity and an eagerness to communicate that defied everything the Concord had predicted about these supposed monsters. The human woman from the first chamber was named Sarah Chen, and she was, according to the ship's records, a linguistics specialist and cultural liaison. Within hours of awakening, she was working with Treneth to establish translation protocols, her mind grasping alien language structures with a speed that amazed the Valanthi scientists. By the second day, basic communication was possible. By the third day, Sarah was speaking serviceable Valanthi, and Wellness found herself in the Horizon Lance observation deck, sitting across from a human for the first time in galactic history. "You saved us," Sarah said, her voice carrying an accent that made the Valanthi words sound both foreign and musical. "Why? Your databases would have told you what we are. What your people think we are." Wellness considered her answer carefully. "Because you survived 900 years in the dark. Because you maintained your culture and your hope when you had every reason to surrender to despair. Because the galaxy judged you without knowing you, and I thought that judgment deserved to be questioned." Sarah's eyes glistened with moisture, a human physiological response to emotion that Kessa had explained was called crying. "We thought we were alone. We thought the galaxy had forgotten us, or worse, that it remembered and simply didn't care. When my ancestors launched this ship, they believed they would find welcome among the stars. Instead, they found closed doors and hostile warnings. Generation after generation, we searched and were rejected. Eventually, we stopped searching. We just waited. What will you do now?" Wellness asked gently. Sarah looked out at the nebula beyond the viewport, her expression complex with emotions the Valanthi captain could only partially read. "We will do what humans have always done, Captain. We will adapt. We will learn. We will find a way forward. If the galaxy will have us, we will prove we are worth having. If it will not," she paused, her jaw tightening with determination, "then we will survive anyway. We are good at surviving." Before Wellness could respond, alarms shrieked through both ships simultaneously. Her communicator activated with her first officer's urgent voice. "Captain, we have multiple contacts incoming. Fast attack vessels, configuration matches Krail Empire raiders. They are moving to intercept both our position and the human vessel. Estimated time to engagement, 14 minutes. Wellness felt ice flood through her veins. The Krail were predators, a species that had perfected the art of piracy and slavery, operating just beyond Concord jurisdiction in regions too remote for patrol vessels. They took ships, technology, and captives, and they were utterly ruthless. The Stillwater Dawn was a science vessel, lightly armed and completely unprepared for combat. And the human ship, awakened after centuries, would be even more vulnerable. Sarah was already moving, her body responding to the alarm with military precision that seemed instinctive. "Combat situation?" she asked, her earlier emotion replaced by sharp focus. "Raiders. 4 vessels. We are outgunned and outmatched," Wellness replied, rising to follow the human back toward the command center. By the time they reached the human operations center, dozens of awakened humans were already present, moving with coordinated purpose to stations throughout the ship. A tall man with gray-streaked hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command stepped forward. Captain Chen reporting. I am the senior military officer aboard the Horizon Lance. What is our tactical situation? Sarah quickly translated as Wellness explained the threat. Captain Chen listened, his expression growing harder with each detail. When she finished, he turned to his crew and began speaking in rapid human language. The crew responded immediately, their hands flying across controls that had not been used in 2 centuries. Incredibly, systems began responding. Lights that had been dark for generations flickered to life. Weapons ports opened along the hull, revealing armaments that made Wellness's secondary heart skip a beat. This ship, built by desperate humans fleeing their dying world, had been designed not just for survival but for protection. Captain Wellness, Chen said through Sarah's translation, your people woke us from our long sleep. You gave us hope when we had none. You showed us kindness when the galaxy showed us only fear. We will not allow harm to come to you. Not while humans still draw breath. Your ship has been dormant for 200 years, Wellness protested. Your crew is barely awake. You cannot possibly. Watch us, Chen interrupted, and there was something in his smile that was both gentle and absolutely unyielding. The Krail raiders emerged from faster-than-light travel with the confidence of predators who had never encountered significant resistance in these remote regions. Their battle formation was designed for intimidation and rapid overwhelming force. They transmitted no warnings, no demands. They simply opened fire on the Volanthi science vessel, their energy weapons tearing through the Stillwater Dawn's minimal shielding and scorching across her hull. Then the Horizon Lance moved. Despite her size, despite centuries of dormancy, the human vessel accelerated with shocking speed, positioning herself directly between the raiders and the damaged Volanthi ship. The Krail weapons struck the Horizon Lance's armor plating and dissipated, absorbed by defensive systems built to withstand the weapons of a species that had perfected the art of killing its own kind. The human ship's weapons systems activated, and Wellness watched in awe as precisely targeted fire disabled 2 raider vessels in the opening seconds of engagement. Not destroyed, disabled. The shots had been calculated to cripple propulsion and weapons while leaving life support intact. This is Captain Chen of the human vessel Horizon Lance, came the transmission in multiple galactic languages, Sarah's linguistic work having provided the necessary translations. You have attacked an unarmed science vessel and threatened peaceful beings. Stand down immediately, or we will interpret your actions as a declaration of hostile intent. The remaining 2 Krail vessels, apparently shocked by the sudden resistance, attempted to flank the human ship. They were fast, but Captain Chen had not survived 900 years in the void by being slow to adapt. The Horizon Lance rotated with precision, her defensive guns tracking both targets simultaneously. Warning shots crossed the raiders' flight paths, close enough to make the threat absolutely clear. The Krail understood the message. They had encountered something they had not expected, a prey that could bite back. Harder. The raiders retreated, limping back toward whatever dark corner of space had spawned them, leaving their disabled companions behind. Chen immediately dispatched rescue shuttles, human crews moving to provide emergency life support to the very beings who had just attacked them. Wellness stood on her damaged bridge, staring at the massive human ship that had placed itself in harm's way without hesitation. Sarah's voice came through the communicator, gentle but carrying unmistakable pride. Captain Wellness, we have medical teams standing by to assist with your wounded. Our engineers can help with repairs. We owe you our lives. Please, let us begin to repay that debt.